Before we get out of here, though, this is something I talked to Adam about on the side, just because I did want to clarify this. And I think most people listening to this podcast probably already know this, but hopefully we are getting new listeners, and hopefully there are new people who are attracted to the news and the ongoings in the industry. And basically a whole bunch of lazy headlines came out, Adam, which was Bally Sports bankruptcy and whatever. And all. And I have people texting me going, are you serious? Like, this company, like, is that bad off? And all of a sudden everything is like, I'm like, no, they had the naming rights to the network. It's actually Sinclair. And by the way, it's a subsidiary of Sinclair. Like, you had to like do all this stuff, but like, it's way easier because it was just branded Bally Sports. Like Bally Sports bankruptcy going like across these headlines. And it's like, no, Bally Sports still has Bally's and as a company and all that. Like, they still have their casinos and they're still going to try to do the sports betting thing and all their things like that. Like, they're not, it's not them that's doing the bankruptcy in this.
Man, I gotta say, if you're Fox Sports and you used to be branded all over these RSNs, you dodged one on this, didn't you?
You did.
You don't have to be out there caught up in the middle of bankruptcy stories. Yeah, Diamond Sports, the subsidiary of Sinclair, filed for bankruptcy. It's something they had signaled for a few weeks now was a possibility, and that's going to put, I believe, it's something in the range of 40 regional sports networks into bankruptcy. And look, Major League Baseball was already planning for this. There are plans to continue broadcasting games on those networks this year. And the big thing to understand for our industry here is that Bally Bet, a subsidiary of Bally Corp, is not affected by this.
Yeah.
And if you want more information, I might just have a story coming out at Legal Sports Report later today, further explaining to people, since we now have seen the actual Diamond filing, that that's not going to be a concern. Now, there are plenty of other concerns for Bally Bet that we've already covered on this podcast, but this bankruptcy in particular is not one of them.
And the only thing I do want to, and I'm not trying to, get ahead of anything here, Dustin, but I mean, look, there are some of these teams now that are, and certainly in even just teams in the same region, who are kind of coming out saying like, hey, look, we'll just take over the network. These are things that we're going to do. It does make me wonder, with the betting partnerships that we do see with the various teams and things and stuff like that, if I'm using this for an example because the Astros and the Rockets got together and said, hey, we'll just take over the network. Like we'll do it ourselves, et cetera, et cetera. Do we see that network brought to you by whatever, Sports XYZ or whatever, should stuff start to move in Texas and things like that? I mean, I do think that it kind of opens up maybe some stuff that we'll be talking about maybe over the next 6 months to a year, depending on how this network stuff does get divvied up and, what Major League Baseball decides to do with all of these. Are they going to just hand them over to the teams and whatnot, or is Major League Baseball going to try to do it themselves? But we might actually have some gambling implications with all of this, not gambling in itself, but gambling businesses and ties and different things down the line, because, they're going to have to foot the bill for these networks some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you guys are way more the TV experts than I am, but they're like, all I know that the teams and the leagues still want these games on being shown somewhere, and they want the money that comes in from the rights, right? So whether that's done this way, or they're going to, broadcast it themselves, or just find another way to do it, they clearly they're not ready for the disruption of, all this, our rights are now toast, right? Because we're not being able to serve this in a local market. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Yes, or maybe there's more niche streaming. We've seen, if latency ever gets straightened out, we know sportsbooks all want to show these games. Is that something that not in the near future, but maybe more of that in the future as well?
Yeah. Adam, can you imagine if you weren't able to watch the Yankees? Could you just what would your life feel like if you couldn't just turn on a Yankee game and you had to follow it on the little game tracker, on one of the things, how that would, your life would significantly over the summer be substantially worse, right? I mean, for me, it even would, and I don't even have a baseball team. I don't have a team.
Let me take you back to the mid-'90s when the Yankees played the Mariners in the division series, and it was on something called the Baseball Network. That was a playoff game that was on something called the Baseball Network that I couldn't access. I was in Las Vegas. I couldn't access it. My mom and I were sitting in the car, in the garage, with the engine turned on, listening to the radio broadcast of the game in extra innings. That's the level to which I follow these things.
Yeah.
Every day, 4:00 comes around, I turn on the television and it just goes on in the background. And that is just further proof that even if it's not the Yes Network and the Yankees, there is money to be made somewhere within this. If we go to a streaming app that is more team-based, right now, MLB TV has at least put in a version of its streaming where you can get a single team. But maybe it's something that the team ends up taking over in some way and provides more original content from inside their own locker room and charges you a monthly subscription that goes outside of baseball season. There are ways to do this, but it's going to take some reimagining.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've seen bet broadcasts of the NBA so far. The ESPN has put the Daily Wager crew, side by side with a broadcast to kind of walk us through things. They're going to end up paying the bills somehow. Now, again, I'm not trying to say this is going to happen or whatever, but it would not shock me if these rights do get given to the teams or whatever, if we don't see something along those lines, as you mentioned, Dustin, whether it's a streaming companion that is gambling based or betting based or whatever it might be somewhere along the way. It would not shock me. Wouldn't shock me. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. All I know is if T-Mobile didn't give me free MLB TV every year, I'd be out another $100 some. So thank you, T-Mobile. It's not a sponsor. We didn't take any money from T-Mobile.
Unsponsored. However, if you would like to sponsor, you can slide into Dustin or Adam's DMs. You can do that. Or follow him on Twitter first anyway, at Dustin Gouker, at Adam Candee, 2 E's, no Y. Everything we talk about here on the podcast, you can find over at LegalSportsReport.com. So please go over there, check out Adam's team and what they've got going on, all of the hard work and listening to hearings and going through filings and all the stuff so you don't have to. We are definitely appreciative of all of that.